Hello, today's video is about consultancy for business, about mobile app development, and we will cover more business needs and business concerns about this topic more rather than technical details and implementation itself. So today's topics will be text localization, and we'll cover for both platforms, Android and iOS in this case, because most of the time it will be very similar by business needs. And basically we have two main approaches how to make this translation of the text or localization of text. The first one is the more traditional way when we make this localization locally on our code, and the second approach, more modern, is just some remote platform localization when we are using third-party platforms for localizations and getting this information from platform directly to our application. So let's check the first approach. It's local localization when we define our values inside the code. Just for example, it will be iOS application with some approach how to define this localization in the code. So don't put more attention on this how it's implemented, just by some business part of this. You need to understand basic implementation of this approach because it's pretty simple. We have some keys and some values we define for different languages by the same key, different text. And we are not limited by few languages. We may localize whatever languages we need, just create more and more files with different localization. This approach is pretty similar because it's built-in solution for Apple and Android in the code, fully offline. So you define these values and text inside the application, and during its installation, any of these languages will be available for the end user, and it's easily might be changed during the application usage or during the installation. And about the second approach, when we have some remote platform for localization, basically we have a lot of different platforms already, and you may choose whatever you want by different features what they provided, functionality, pricing. In this case, when we're discussing about the approach, how it's working, they're pretty similar. So you may choose, for example, some localize.com as example, but they work pretty the same. So how it's working in a remote approach, we define these keys and values on this platform or on dashboard, and during the launch application, this information is fetched from this platform. Most of the platforms are located in the cloud, so you don't need to think how to distribute this information across the world on different markets. So the latency of getting this information from the platform to the your app will be very low. During the launch, your application getting information from this platform, or the next or another approach how to get it's runtime. When user or open some screen on your application requests information from platform, and just particular values will be sent back from this platform to your application and displayed on the screen. So the key difference between local localization and remote, what in remote you don't need to update your application and wait when development team update information in code, then test it, release it in App Store or Google. play market, so you may easily change any value of your text inside this platform, and this information will be fetched by your application, and the end user will see all new values almost immediately. So you don't need to rely on your development team, spend time. So let's talk about pros and cons of each of these approaches. Basically about the first approach and local localization, what it's very simple to develop because it's natively supported by Android and iOS. Your development team just need to copy paste values from documentation on a feature or story level and pass in this file, and everything will work from the box. The second point was it's fully offline. Whatever the device has internet or doesn't, so this localization option will be available in any time. So the user may easily change language from one to another, and everything will be on the device in any moment. And the next point, what this approach might be easily tested by a development team, by yourself, and especially in earlier stages, because nothing will be changed and dependent of some environment. When you deploy from some development or test environment, you don't need to double check the same localization, translation, because everything will be the same on any environment and will be the same when you deploy it to the App Store or Google Play Store. And the last point, you then don't have any dependency on third-party libraries. Everything will be maintained and managed by yourself. And the most cons of this approach, what you need to update your application. So any changes in this text lead to a new version of your application. And sometimes it may take some time. It depends how it's organized in your team, how you deploy new versions of application to the App Store or Google Play Market. So it may take some days, weeks, or months, depends of iteration. The second major point, what you rely on your development team, because you need to send this information to development team, and development team will update this information. The next point is what sometimes this information must be different between iOS and Android platform, because sometimes one of these platforms might update information faster than another one. And the last point is about scalability of this method, because if you have a lot of languages what you need to update and your application is very complicated, so you have a lot of information that must be translated in different languages, and your development team need to create a lot of files, maintain them, and be sure that any of these keys will be presented on other languages. And the more languages you add to your application, the more maintenance time you needed for your development team. And about remote approach, the most pros of this approach is what you have all your updates immediately. You don't need to wait this time until the next release. So you just update this information on platform dashboard, and this information will be fetched automatically by your application almost immediately for both platforms. So the next point, major point about the both platforms, you have the same information because it's coming from the same source. You update this information once, so you may be sure that both platforms will have the same translation and the same values for your text. The next point, what your development team will have less effort and less task for this information update about translation, localization part. So they may more focus on feature implementation rather than these text localization updates. With this remote approach, you may easily perform A/B testing when you need to, especially check some promos, when you put some new keywords and check how it's working. You just easily change it in this dashboard. So in this case, when you use remote platform, you update this information, check how it's working, how users respond on this, and you may change to another value and you'll see the result. And cons of this approach, what it's very dependent on the internet, because everything and all information is getting from the cloud. And the major cons, what you have a very big dependency on third-party service. So most of these localization platforms don't have a migration option. So if you will decide to move from one platform to another, most probably you need to create from the scratch the entire translation. And sometimes you need to double check about the privacy and compliance concerns. In this case, because sometimes you might send some privacy information on this platform to be translated on another languages. So in some cases, it might be restricted to share information or store this information outside some areas. For example, USA or Europe might have some restriction about the privacy information. So you must do double check this information and this approach before you started to move your information. So when and which approach you need to use? Basically, when you have a simple application and not a lot of languages what you need to translate, you definitely need to choose local localization, because it will be more stable, simpler, faster for implementation for your team. But if you have a more complicated application and you have a lot of languages for localization, it most probably you need to choose a second option like a remote platform, especially when you have a lot of information that must be changed during some seasons or for marketing purposes. It will be much easier for you to change it and use a remote platform localization rather than this local part. Definitely you have option to use hybrid mode, like define some of your information in local storage, and part of this move to remote platforms, but it's put more complexity on your application, so you need to check it with your development team. In any case, what you are choosing, you in any moment may change your approach from local to remote or from remote to local if you're not agree or you don't have the expected result of your localization. I hope so. Now you have more understanding about the approach and how it's working, like a brief overview about the localization feature. But still, if you have some questions, you may ask it in comments or send to me emails. I will try to answer all of them. If this video helped you, please like and subscribe.